Woo!
Hey everybody, Jim Sammons here from the Kayak Fishing Show live, brought to you by Ballast Point Brewing Company. As always, except I'm not having a beer. I got too much to do. Hope everybody's doing good. Of course, we are also brought to you by all these great sponsors: Seaguard, Jackson Kayak, Werner Paddles, Standard Horizon, Yak Attack, Siegler Reels, A Band of Anglers, which is Patrick Sabile's Lures, Ray Marine, and Kokatat. Those have all been our sponsors for a really long time, and need to mention them because without them we wouldn't be able to do this show for so long. Of course, I feel like we're not doing the show right now because we're just still kind of stuck. Got no plans, got no trips, got nothing. Been kind of windy around here, so the fishing's not really going. I think I mentioned it the other day. Guy caught a really big white sea bass up off Dana Point. Pretty impressive that. But it's very, very high winds out here today, kind of like what we're looking at behind me there. That's actually out at Cedros Island, and not really having a chance to get out. But, neither here nor there. The other thing is, again, been kind of busy, unfortunately, because of distractions. I forgot to schedule a guest for today. I never really got around to it. Like I said, a lot of distractions. I had one of my dogs, who was 15 years old, had to put him down the other day, and that kind of threw a wrench into things around here, and among other things. So anyway, but because this episode is about the making of the Kraken, at least part of the episode is, and then other parts is doing some fishing in Tennessee, I figured I could handle any questions, and we could talk a little bit about it. Say hello to a few people who are watching. Volks Watson, he loves his Kraken. Thank you, man. I'm glad somebody does. And Liam, thanks for joining us, and I appreciate it. We've got quite a few guys who are actually joining us from the Kayak Fishing Tales, our YouTube channel, which I always like to see. So very, very cool. Serge, thanks for joining us, man. And Lost Horizon Fishing, windy here in Huntington Beach also. Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty windy the rest of the week is my understanding. So, I have been doing some working on the kayaks, and I did some working on our boat, and so I'm ready to go fishing. Just need that window to really open up, so we can get after it. Louis Artola, first time here. Thanks for joining us, man. Like I said, normally speaking on these shows, we bring in a guest, someone who was with me in the shooting of the episode. Basically, the guest I would have liked on this episode would have been Tony Lee, who was the designer at Jackson Kayak. And like I said, things got kind of messed up, and I just kind of forgot to invite anybody. The other guests on here are Damon, Bungard, and Eric Jackson, who no longer work for Jackson Kayak. So no big deal, though. Still fun, still good friends. But like I said, it was just my spacing out that I forgot to invite anybody on here. So, but we do these every Tuesday and Thursday. So, airing our older episodes. This episode that we're airing is from season 6, episode 7. And we have been on the air 11 years. So, been on the air a long time. So if this is new to you, we air the Jackson Kayak years on Tuesdays, and then on Thursdays we air our Ocean Kayak years, so the beginning. So speaking of the beginning, this episode is going to talk about the Kraken, the boat that I helped design with Jackson Kayak. My experience with working on boat designs goes back to, I worked with Ocean Kayak for a long time. I sent the very first proposal for a true fishing boat to Ocean Kayak, which that boat became the Prowler. That was actually based on the boat and not very many people are familiar with it, a boat called the Manta from Ocean Kayak. It was a great paddling boat, had a lot of volume. really the whole deck layout was wrong. There was nothing right about that boat. Your feet position were really close together. It wasn't very comfortable, but it was an awesome, awesome paddling boat and had that volume to carry a lot of fishing gear. So I was lucky enough to paddle that thing. And right after I paddled that, I sent this proposal to Ocean Kayak to use that basic hull and redesign the deck on it and turn that into a fishing boat, which eventually became the Prowler. After the Prowler, I worked on the deck design and helped them with that boat, doing all the deck layout on the Trident, the fish finder area that folded up, one of the very first center hatches, which we called the rod pod. So you get your rods, everything down inside the boat. So that was a really fun project to work on. Unfortunately, I never got a whole lot of notoriety. Nobody ever really said much that I helped do all this design work on those. But whatever. Fast forward, I end up working with Jackson Kayak, and what an awesome experience it was to work with Tony Lee, other team members, other guys at the factory, and be able to work on what would become my signature boat, the Kraken. And I say this in the video, and I will say it again. I didn't design this boat. If any kayak anglers are out there saying they designed a boat, they didn't. We have input, but unless you were there with a planer and, laying up the plugs and doing everything else, you didn't design that boat. We had input. I was lucky to work with a great group of guys, and we all collectively designed the Kraken. I got some of the best ideas bouncing ideas back and forth with my buddy Sean. So it's all collaborative. Like I said, I did not design this boat, but at the end of the day, they put my name on it because, I did have a lot of input, but I certainly wasn't in there, sanding down styrofoam to make the initial plug. So, but we were pretty proud with how that came out. Some of the pretty funny things that were involved there, because I'm in San Diego, Jackson Kayak being in Sparta, Tennessee, it was a lot of emails and texts and going back and forth on ideas and what we thought should be one way versus another way. And Tony Lee and I just got into it, really butting heads on a couple of the design things that he was putting in. And this is just going by them sending me photos and me, like I said, me being here in San Diego. And we were just, he could not see how I was thinking. He didn't understand it. I couldn't understand what he was trying to say. So finally, Damon just goes, dude, we need to get this settled. Get out here. So they flew me out there. I walked into Tony's design area, shaping room, and within 15 minutes, we had it all settled, because then I could understand what he was conceptualizing. He could understand my thought process, and like that, we made it work. And that day, I think I was there for a few days, but we hammered out so many details on that boat, and it was so much fun. But like I said, the whole process was a great time working with everybody. And like I said, my buddy Sean White, he and I bounced so many ideas back and forth on this boat while we were still working on it, and just from past experience working on these other fishing boats. It's a sad thing for me that the boat is kind of on the back shelf now. If somebody wants to special order it and we get like a bulk order, they'll still do it. But unfortunately, the Kraken is a discontinued boat, and maybe it was not ahead of its time, but behind its time. If they could make that boat a lot lighter, I'm sure it would still go. But it seems like now everybody wants to pedal. And, I'm a paddler. This was a true paddler's fishing boat. And it performed so well in surf and rough water and everything else. But everybody seems to think you need pedals anymore. So, and pedals certainly have their place. But anyway, if it's not selling, they're not going to keep making it. So totally understand that. But it was, I said, it was a super fun process, and I'm still very involved with Jackson Kayak. We've had meetings on new to boat designs and everything, and we're always talking. Hopefully someday it goes back to people wanting paddlers boats, or perhaps it'll go back to people wanting to paddle. Maybe if they do come up with a material that is lighter, and you can have a, darn near 16-foot kayak that is lightweight and you can move it around, maybe it'll come back into play. I don't know. So got a couple comments here. Sergeant Rock, he has a big rig. The big rig's a sweet boat. We actually showed an episode the other day. I caught a tarpon standing up in the big rig. I mean, just such a fun boat. I don't like paddling it personally because it is so big. That's a great, the pedal edition of that boat is really awesome. But as far as a stand-up platform, what a great boat the big rig is. Ron, sorry about my dog. Yeah, I appreciate that. We had 5 dogs, so we're back down to 4. But my wife wants 7, so, Ken, thanks for joining us from Orlando. I really appreciate it. John, how's it going, buddy? We got Fiska Gustav Nord. Greetings from Sweden. The Kraken is a very nice kayak for sea ocean fishing. Yeah, there's a funny thing, and thanks for joining us from Sweden. The Kraken is still quite popular in Europe. But then you have all the tariffs and everything, which has made importing the Kraken to Europe very difficult. It's making the boat really expensive. So the one place it really wants the boat is having a hard time with it because of the purchase price. It's a shame. Lost Horizon just purchased a new offshore fishing kayak made in South Africa. I'm really excited to bring that to La Jolla Sharks. Yeah, again, that's more to that really fast, lightweight paddlers fishing boat. My biggest issue with those boats is I don't know if I can sit on them anymore because my back is so bad. That's the one thing that has kept me going, is these higher, more comfortable seats on the boats now, as opposed to what were in them when I first started out. So, and what we've been able to do with the bait tank areas and all that. So, what was this? Volks, will this vid be available later? I'd love to watch again. Well, yeah, this will stay up. This will be available on the Facebook page, and it will stay up on the YouTube channel, Kayak Fishing Tales. So yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not heavier than a Hobie. Yeah, like the Pro Angler is 135 pounds. I told this story the other day. Is back in the day when we were paddling the the old Scupper Pro, I'd carry that thing around over my head like a surfboard, and it weighed around 50 pounds. And everybody thought it was such an awesome boat, but they were like, "God, this is really great. If only it was lighter." I would give anything to go back to having a nice, long, light 50-pound boat, because now they're 75 pounds is a minimum anymore. So like I said, but if you start getting into composites and carbon fiber right now, they become so expensive. So until they can come up with a material that's light but it's not going to kill you're just not going to sell the volume of boats you need to. Yeah, it's sad. If it's here it's sad. It's here. It's been discontinued. Try getting out through the surf with a big pedal. Yeah, that's actually quite entertaining. Go down to the surf launch at La Jolla and watch everybody crash their big pedal boats. And then the other thing is what I have historically seen is that the guys in pedal boats, never really learn great boat control, because us that are paddlers, you learn how to, if you want to be a good paddler, good paddling fisherman, you learn how to paddle properly, and you learn all those strokes, and you learn good boat control. Most of the time, you'll see guys jump in their pedal boats, and if they do have to paddle, they're paddling upside down, and they just never take the time to learn those skills. So when you are having to deal with surf situations where you really do need good boat control, a lot of times they don't necessarily have it. So I do highly recommend, even if you are a peddler, that you take some time and learn to be a good paddler and learn some of the basic strokes. And if you're doing surfing and that sort of thing, learn how to brace. You know, I was actually looking at a video earlier. It just popped up, and a guy was landing in the surf, and he was in an old ocean kayak. And it was the first time I'd seen somebody come in the surf and actually demonstrate some good bracing skills in quite some time. You know, it's just something you don't see that much anymore. So like I said, I highly recommend you go out there, you know, strip down your boat, play with it in the surf zone and all that. But anyway, let's get to this video. Like I said, this is, we visited Sparta, Tennessee, where Jackson Kayak is. And we visit with Tony Lee, who is the boat designer, and talk about what we went through to design the boat. And then we go through a step-by-step on the process of, basically, it's not necessarily the Kraken, but of the process of making a sit-on-top kayak. And then, like I said, then we go fishing with EJ and Damon at a spot for largemouth bass up where they live there. So with no further ado, let's let this thing roll. I guess I should add it to the feed. There we go.
This week on the Kayak Fishing Show, we're in Sparta, Tennessee, visiting Jackson Kayak. We're going to take you through the process of making my signature boat, the Kraken. We're going to show you from design to coming out of the mold, and hopefully at the end of the day, I'm going to take one home. Stick around.
Word to the wise, if your mama ain't taught you. Don't stand in front of a man and a fish he ain't caught yet. Honey, if the world calls me, tell him I'm fishing. I'm going fishing. Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Where am I headed? Wouldn't you like to go fishing? I'm going fishing. Woo!
Jackson Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you by Jackson Kayak. One family, many waters. Standard Horizon. Nothing takes to the water like Standard Horizon. Raymarine. Don't just go fishing, go hunting underwater with Raymarine. Mountain Khaki. Live life untucked. Ram Mounts. Innovative mounting systems proudly made in the USA. And Hook One. Everything you need to get out there and hook one. This week on Jackson Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show, Jim travels to Sparta, Tennessee to see the home of Jackson Kayak. He's there to see the first run of his signature kayak, the Kraken, as they come hot out of the oven.
When I first joined Jackson Kayak, one of the things we initially talked about was making a boat that was appropriate for my style of fishing, which is, for the most part, bigger water, paddling distances. That's what I like. I really like paddlers fishing kayaks. I had the pleasure of working with Tony Lee, the rest of his design staff, and the rest of the Jackson Kayak family to come out with this Kraken kayak, Jim Sammons' signature boat. And I just came from the dealer summit where everybody had a chance to paddle it. And the feedback so far has been nothing but amazing.
Really, it started with, number one, they came to me and said, hey, we've got Jim Sammons on board, so that means we're going to have to build a boat for him. And my first thought was, who the hell's Jim Sammons? Because, I've been doing this for 18 years now, and this is probably one of the most fun projects I've been on, because it was you get to do something that hasn't been done before, something that's fast and stable that anybody can fish out of and paddle. And I think this would be even if you didn't fish, I think this would be a great boat to be in.
Oh yeah, and that's what I've always said. It's like, yeah, it's a fishing boat. It's supposed to be, but for the expedition guy who wants an expedition sit on top, warmer waters, that sort of thing, it's certainly gonna do that, because not only did you get the speed, the stability, but we have that volume.
So we make a lot of different types of boats, and my favorite boat is the big rig, wide, stable. However, the thing that was missing from the Jackson Kayak line is a fishing boat that just goes long distance, fast, made for offshore, big swells, and that's what I'm fired up with the Kraken. It takes to another place.
I don't want anybody to ever say that Jim Sammons designed this boat. Honestly, I mean, it's been said, I didn't design this boat. I had input, I helped. Tony Lee designed this boat and did just an amazing job. The things he incorporated into this boat and the working experience that I had with him on this boat was just great.
Stay tuned. When we come back, the guys head to Long Branch Lakes for a few days in bass-filled waters. The Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Jackson Kayak. One family, many waters. Learn more at jacksonkayak.com.
So there's a commercial break, and so if there's any questions, I'll just take a look over here. Volkswagen said stinking fast for a paddle. Yeah, the Kraken was a great paddling boat, and particularly I like the 15-footer. They came out with a 13-footer, which we have always known has been kind of the sweet spot. People like that length. I always said I would like it if it was 17 feet. I like long, fast boats. The Kraken really, in my opinion, excelled when the conditions got worse. It just cuts right through that. I paddled it side by side with some competition where their boats were kind of going through the chop, and the Kraken just had such nice lift over the chop. And like I said, just a joy to paddle. I will say that at least on the 15-footer, where historically I don't like rudders on kayaks. I think if you know how to paddle, for the most part, the boat will do what you want it to do. But like some other long boats, the Kraken did kind of like to have a rudder in a following sea. It did have a tendency to want to slide to the side, get a little broachy in a long following sea. So where I have one of my Krakens has a rudder on it, I would probably only drop the rudder like 1 out of every 4 trips. But when you needed it, it sure was nice to have a rudder on there. But everything else, like I said, we put a lot of thought into it on how you could set up your electronics, having a good big transducer scupper on it. Unfortunately, transducers just kept getting bigger. And then, of course, the bait tank scupper, which none of the other kayaks have, they still don't have, which was so nice. If you were a live bait fisherman, historically, we had our bait tanks. You'd have your pump and you kind of drag it off the side of the boat, or you had some kind of a pump system that you had to prime, which, because of the position we were able to get, and I say we, it was, the idea came from Sean and I and talking, but Tony Lee, again, is the one who made this work, was to get that bait pump scupper low enough where it was self-priming. So all you had to do is turn it on, and it worked. So, moving forward, I hope we can incorporate that into more boats in the Jackson line, because that was something that, like I said, hadn't been done before and hasn't been done since. Deborah Hopkins, have you discussed the new Sportsman 120 autopilot? Deborah, I'm not going to lie. I have no idea what that is. Sorry. I can't even guess. Serge says when I got a pedal kayak, it spoiled me, but I kept my Liska and still use it once in a while. Yeah. And again, what's going to work for some people doesn't work for others. For me, again, I'm a paddler. I've been paddling forever. Until I got the Blue Sky, I had never been in a pedal kayak that felt comfortable to me. I've got a really bad back, and just the seated position when pedaling was not as comfortable to me as when I'm seated and paddling. Like I said, the Blue Sky, you're much higher, you're pedaling downward. It's more of a correct ergonomic position for me. Obviously that's not the case for everybody, because otherwise nobody would be paddling. But like I said, it works better for me. Jeff, thanks for joining us. Mark, joining us from Texas. How are you? Volks, you have a 15. Can't wait to put 10 miles on it. And 10 miles is easy in that boat. I can cruise that boat not paddling hard at 4 miles an hour, and I can keep that pace going all day. And if you're talking trolling live baits, where you're usually going like 1.5 to 2 miles an hour, and it just glides. That boat really did have a great combination of speed and stability. Where when we were designing it, when I was proposing what I wanted, I told them, look, if people are standing in this thing, it's too wide. I don't want that extra resistance. And then, of course, guys who are used to standing up in kayaks start standing in it. And they're like, oh my gosh. But I never felt like, once you were on it, I never felt like it was too wide. I never felt like, it didn't have that great paddle ability. So I think Tony found a really good combination of that speed and stability, which is, for us offshore guys, is always what you're looking for, a good combination of speed and stability. And he pretty much hit the nail on the head, I thought. James, Jonathan Lee says James Macbeth won in a Kraken. Yeah, he won the tournament down at Los Busos in the Kraken. He was the only one in a paddle kayak. So there you go. You don't have to have pedals to win. So anyway, let's get this video rolling again, and we'll see what goes on in part 2. I think he said we go to a lake at this point, and I haven't watched this in forever, but I think we actually go to the plant. We're still at the plant and watch some boats made, I think. I could be wrong.
Is brought to you by Raymarine. Don't just go fishing, go hunting underwater with Raymarine. Welcome back. This week, Jim is joining Damon, Bungard, and EJ Jackson from Jackson Kayak. They're learning how our favorite fishing kayaks are made at the Jackson Kayak Factory in Sparta, Tennessee.
All right, hi, I'm Damon Bungard. Welcome to the Jackson Kayak Factory. This is where dreams become reality. Today we're going to talk about the manufacturing of the Kraken and how raw plastic becomes a kayak. They're pouring it in the mold here behind me. They're actually laying in graphics right now, so they're rubbing the graphic into the mold. They'll be pouring the plastic in. Mold gets sealed up, goes into one of these big ovens over here, rocks and rolls, spins around every direction. All the plastic heats up, melts, and goes everywhere we need. Comes out, goes into these cooling racks in the back wall, spins for a while, cools, shrinks, comes out from there, gets demolded, over here onto the cooling jigs. All the plastic gets mic'd for thickness, check to make sure we got plastic all where we want it to go. Then it heads over here to trim. Okay, so once the boat's cooled and everything's good, it's brought over here to initial cut and trim. So these guys are gonna remove a lot of the excess plastic that's not needed. Things like cockpits, hatch openings, trim around, thigh hooks and things like that. So whitewater boats, fishing boats, whatever it is, come over here, cut and trim, then they go onto a rack, headed to assembly. It's been molded, it's been trimmed, it's out here now, and the actual boat's going together. So we have a whitewater line, a fishing line, and everybody's putting together seats, brackets, every kind of part that goes into the kayak gets installed here. So the end of the line in assembly, Dave behind me is here doing a QC check on this boat, looking it over, making sure everything's perfect before it gets bagged and headed to the warehouse. Okay, so boats are molded, trimmed, built through QC. They're up here getting checked out for final paperwork and everything else, heading into the warehouse. So our philosophy here in manufacturing is build it like it's yours. You know, we employ about 150 people locally here in Sparta, Tennessee, very small area. So it's great to have a lot of fathers, sons, a lot of families working here. So really big on supporting the community, building it here. A lot of people here they're all kayakers. They care about what's going out the door, and they want you to have the best product you can get. Bagged Kraken, ready to go, showing up at a shoreside near you.
After an amazing day at the Jackson factory, the guys load up a few new kayaks.
So I know that was a really quick overview of the whole process. Rotomolding kayaks is a pretty interesting process, and a lot of stuff that people don't understand. I saw a guy posting about the Blue Sky, and they were talking about issues with how some holes weren't lining up, some inserts. And of course, there was all the local experts were explaining how to do it correctly, which were completely off. Like I said, there's different things that rotomolding plastic is not a really, really exact science. Just like the shaping of the boat, you have to, that's why you do plugs and practice molds first. The way a boat shrinks, what most people don't understand is that kayaks, when they're cooling, they shrink. And based on the color of the plastic, they may have different shrink rates. So a red boat may be shorter than a yellow boat, for instance. So they have to take all these things into consideration. A lot of times some of the very first boats off of the line for a new model are quite heavy because they just add a little bit more plastic to try to figure out where that plastic is going. Like I said, the boats themselves, it's powdered plastic. They didn't show that, but it's powdered plastic goes into the mold, and then they close up that mold, throw that in an oven, heat it up so it melts, and then it is spinning and rocking and rolling. And then they adjust how it is rocking and how long it stays in a certain spot to get the plastic flow to the correct areas to get extra thickness, say around scuppers. The hotter the area, I hope I don't have this backwards because it's been a while, but I think the hotter the area, the more it pulls in the plastic. So for instance, they may make the area at the scuppers hotter, so it gets a little bit thicker. So it's a very interesting process to watch them go through initially and figuring out exactly how to get the plastic and flow and everything else to the boat. And I said it's never a super exact science, but at the end of the day, after you run a few boats, they get it dialed in, and you end up with really good products. Thankfully, Jackson Kayak is pretty flexible. So if there is an issue, if they discover an issue, they are able to make those adjustments on the fly and inline adjustments to the line. So it works out pretty good. So anyway, let's see. I know we go from here. Like I said, I go fishing with Damon and EJ, and fishing with EJ is a challenge. I'll say that. And I think we talk about it a little bit here, but fishing with Eric Jackson is challenging. It's fun. He's a super high energy guy, but that kind of makes fishing with him a challenge. And I wouldn't even say fishing with him. Shooting with him is a challenge, especially for the cameraman. So take a look.
To head to Long Branch Lakes to spend a couple of days fishing in their signature Bill Dance Trophy Bass Lakes.
The plan was to spend some days fishing with Damon Bungard, who is product manager at Jackson Kayak, and EJ, Eric Jackson, the name on the side of the kayak. For those of you who don't know Eric Jackson, he is a world champion whitewater kayaker. He is 100 miles an hour when he competes as a whitewater paddler. And as I found out, when he fishes, He fishes like nobody I've really fished with before.
So I'm not really sure whether it's my obsessive personality that has me so attracted to fishing. I love casting. I love being in the outdoors, whether it be on a river or a lake. Kayak fishing in particular gets you right on the water. It's just you, a small boat, your fishing poles, your lures, and out in the wilderness. It's an amazing experience just getting out there. But then you add the whole fishing and the challenge of fishing, trying to catch fish, trying to catch big fish, trying to land your lures in the right spot, casting well. Just the total process for me really brings me back and makes me want to fish pretty much every day.
He hits a spot hard. He fishes hard. And I think that's the same way he commits to training. It's the same way he commits to competition. And he commits to that when he's fishing. So, I mean, he's competitive and he's just going to conquer that lake. And it was kind of interesting, but it was fun. I mean, he pounded water. He made more casts than me. He caught more fish than me.
So EJ and I go way back to whitewater days. EJ fishes like he paddles whitewater in many ways. He's pretty aggressive. He likes to go race point to point to point to point and just go fast and cast and try to find the fish. A little different than my style, but definitely it's fun. Variety is good. So he's great to fish with when he's got his hearing aids in. Otherwise, he's going to be wondering why you didn't catch any, because he's yelling fish on all day, and whatever you do, he has no idea.
Stay tuned.
So yeah, as I was saying, as Damon kind of described there, when you're fishing with EJ, and I have fished with him a few times, I have actually told my producer that I didn't want to shoot with him again because, we try to have camaraderie and that. And like I said, I love hanging out with a guy, but fishing with him and trying to shoot a show, he literally, EJ doesn't hear well. So, and he refuses to wear his hearing aids a lot. So you yell and try to get his attention. And, first thing in the morning, okay, look, EJ, we need to all stay together. So, the camera, I've got one camera guy. I go, we want to get shots and everything else. He's like, yeah, no problem. And the next thing you know, it's like, and it's like, and he's 2 miles away. It's like, dude, it was amazing how Alex said he power fishes. I mean, like I said, in that section, in that lake, I mean, he caught more fish than us. He probably made 10 times more casts than we did. But he also pounded the water in front of where we wanted to go fish. So he was difficult to shoot with and fish with, but always a lot of fun because his energy is just next level. Just high powered guy. Huey Fishing, how you doing, man? We have a lot of people watching from Kayak Fishing Tales today on our YouTube channel. I really appreciate that. Huey, you're asking about what kind of trailer that is. The trailer belonged to Damon. I know we did a feature on it in a different episode because he and I fished together right after this down in Florida. So I can look that up for you. Let me see if I can either find out from Damon or if I can find it on that episode. It was very cool. I mean, it was very burly. A lot of storage, had the camp stoves and all that and all the storage, and then the pop-up tent on top, which was very cool. Frank, Mr. Solomons, I just bought a Jackson Kraken 15.5 in mangrove color. I haven't had a chance to try it, but had to tell you how much I very much like the design. Thank you, Frank. Like I said, Tony Lee and I and the rest of the crew worked very hard on getting that boat the way we wanted it to, and it was fun, very fun to work on that boat. And I mean, I know everybody I know that has one still loves it and isn't getting rid of it. I have a few of them. How many do I have? I've got 2 on my trailer right now. 2. I think I've got 3 15s and 2 13s. The 13s I really like because I have a rack that goes on top of our boat, and the 13s are a little bit easier to deal with for throwing up on top of the rack, and then I can take the kayaks out to the islands out here. So very, very cool. Like I said, they're both great boats. I personally like the 15. I said I like long boats. The first time I jumped in the 13, I'm like, man, this thing feels short. But I have friends who are smaller guys that really like that 13 too. So, Mitch, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. Frank, no problem misspelling my name. People misspell it all the time. Volkswagen high energy people are hard to have a relaxing trip with. Yeah, like I said, for me, it was more that it was hard to shoot with him. I mean, just if you were just to be with him and hanging out, and going fishing, sure, he could go pound and you meet at the campsite later or whatever, and you could still have a great time. But shooting with him was quite difficult. And like I said, it was very difficult for my camera guys because they didn't know who to be with. If it's go chase him or stay back with us, where you're not getting those shots where you're getting camaraderie and chatting and all that. So that was the biggest difficulty. Do I still have the pink Kraken? Yes, I do. I do still have that one. That one's up in the rack because I've got a couple of newer ones that are set up with better electronics and all that stuff now. But yes, that color was called Urban Cowgirl. And I loved that color. Is that what I'm in that picture right there? It is. So yes, that's my Urban Cowgirl Kraken 15 in that picture, taken down in Baja. And Jimmy Jam, hi, can I ask a question? Sure, Jimmy Jam, ask a question. I'm going to run this video again, but I will answer your question when we come back on.
The Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by
I will skip
Hook One.
past.
Everything you need to get out there and hook one.
Well, guess I didn't need to.
Here in Tennessee, a lot of great smallmouth bass fishing. There's some good largemouth bass fishing as well, but I don't think there's any better largemouth bass fishing than Long Branch Lakes, right here in Spencer, Tennessee.
Long Branch Lakes is a private gated community in Middle Tennessee, catering towards people looking for a truly outdoor lifestyle. Beautiful homes and over 5,000 acres of woods and lakes, only a short distance from Nashville. But the real draw for Jim is the collection of signature Bill Dance trophy bass lakes.
This week on the show, we are fishing at Long Branch Lakes. It is a gated community with 3 designer bass lakes. These things aren't getting pounded by every Tom, Dick, and Harry driving their bass boat in. Most of them don't allow gas motors, so it's kayaks or canoe or electric motors, all you're allowed to have on them. And we didn't see another person. We fished 2 different lakes. We didn't fish the other, but I've yet to see another person on any of the lakes.
Hi, my name is LaDonna Barton. I'm one of the managing partners of Long Branch Lake Properties, and we have a 5,000-acre private gated community here in Middle Tennessee and Spencer, Tennessee, to be exact. And we're about 90 minutes short from Nashville, Knoxville. And
So we got invited
So
to
it's
this
nice.
location
Day
because
trip,
Damon
21.
actually lives there.
And then today we're standing here in front of one of the lakes at what we call the land of the lake.
The fishing
Long
was
Branch,
the
we
fishing
were
was
living down
tough
here, we
because
lived
it was
around
so
a lot of
cold.
different kind of communities and places. We came down from Vermont, so we were used to a lot of just wide open spaces, natural, good wildlife. We came into Long Branch and kind of drive in. And it's kind of like your own little private park. I came down and was looking at places to live and met some of the Donna and Edmund, the property managers here, and fishing, and kind of called my wife back at home. And this is like a playground for adults. Bass on fire.
If you want to be outside, if you're bored here, it's your own fault.
Whenever I'm going on a trip, I plan on throwing a variety of size lures. And we were planning on doing bass fishing, muskie fishing, and fishing with different weights of lures. That's the really cool thing about APR rods. They have a rod that's going to fit all those different styles of fishing. So, of course, I come on this trip, I brought 4 rods.
I'm not even sure that APR rods exists anymore.
A medium action, and I brought a heavy action. Then I brought an extra heavy action for throwing the big musky lures. I filled all my reels with 20-pound Kansan braid from Seagar. I really like the nose stretch. I like the abrasion resistance. Now, normally, personally, when I'm fishing bass, I don't use a leader. I go straight tied to the lure. We were in some clearer water. I unfortunately forgot to bring my leader, and I wasn't getting bit as well as EJ, and EJ was using some Seagar fluorocarbon leader. I think I made a mistake. I'm actually kind of bummed I made a mistake because he got a lot of bites and I really didn't. EJ and I were throwing the exact same lures for most of the trip, and he was getting bit and I wasn't. And I really think, I mean, the only differences between our setups was he was using Seagar fluorocarbon and I wasn't. I made a mistake. Don't make that mistake.
It's honestly very, very rare that I don't use
Stay tuned. The guys
fluorocarbon
have
leader.
one more day on the water to haul in the big bass. EJ knows are down there. The Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by InReach Explorer, the only truly global satellite communicator with built-in
We
navigation.
can skip this.
Welcome back to the Kayak Fishing Show. Today we're at Long Branch Lakes with my good friend Damon Bungard from Jackson Kayak. We also have Eric, EJ Jackson from Jackson Kayak. We're going to be out here chasing some big bass and just having a good time. Edwin told us to try some of these areas out in front of some tributaries that run into the lake out a little bit deeper. And I just came across a kind of a pile of riprap and stuff, tree branches. I could see them on my Ray Marine fish finder here. So put on a little deeper diving crankbait that I can get down to it.
Damon actually did very well on the fly because it was more of a finesse presentation.
So I'm a big believer that individuals can accomplish a lot, but teams and partners can accomplish a lot more. Jackson Kayak, we can do a lot of things on our own. However, we can do more when we've got strategic partners and people that have a common interest with us, that have certain strengths that we don't have. We're actually designing our kayaks around the Power Pole micro anchor. So my Big Rig Pro, for example, has a micro anchor. The attachment place is ready to go. Strap that on, and you're ready to go. So we're working with these companies. They're helping us develop our boats to work perfectly with their products. And what that does, because Jackson Kayak isn't going to go make our own micro anchor, because we're not in that business. That's not really our strong suit. So by working with partners like that, also with Ray Marine with their new Dragonfly fish finder, we're able to make our kayaks ready to go for a customer off the shelf. They can get their electronics, they can get these different components on the boat and on the water easily. And it's not an afterthought or an aftermarket thing. It's like these boats were designed for it.
He likes the frog. I'm having fun fishing with this frog. They're hitting it really aggressively. I had it on all morning. I swear I didn't get a single hit until probably 3 in the afternoon. Must be less of a breakfast than more of a lunch and dinner thing for frogs.
Well, that about wraps up our trip here to visiting Jackson Kayak and Long Branch Lakes. We've had a great time fishing with EJ Jackson and Damon Bungard. I mean, just we had some rough times, a lot of weather to deal with, and I think I proved once again I'm no bass angler.
I'm not a bass angler.
So throughout this episode, you've seen me fishing from the new Realtree Edition Kilroy. Now the Realtree Kilroy, think of it as the ultimate sportsman's package. So it comes complete with all the great standard Kilroy fishing stuff, all the ram accessories, but it also included is this whole new custom Realtree package. So you get a custom graphics package, but you also get a front soft deck that's in new Realtree Max 5 that stores a whole fitted blind system, a removable Realtree Max 5 seat cover, and a removable decoy bag in the back.
I have a lot of guys who fish freshwater who the Kilroy is their favorite boat.
I'm going to show you the whole crossover dual life of the new Realtree Kilroy. So the Realtree Kilroy is new this year.
It paddles well, got good storage, but definitely a flat water type boat.
Waterfowl hunted from kayaks for quite a while, and we really wanted to take the Kilroy, the benefits of it, to the next level for waterfowl hunters. So a lot of the same things that are great for kayak fishing, you know, ability to get places you can't get with power boats, the ability to be light and be mobile, and have all your stuff nice and organized, and be able to just basically stay out of the water, stay dry, stay warm, versus in your waders when it's cold. All those things transfer directly over into waterfowl hunting. The Realtree Edition comes with a soft cover, which is a complete blind system. It stores in the soft deck, which is also in Realtree Max 5. It comes with a removable seat cover in Realtree Max 5 and a built-in decoy bag behind the seat in Realtree Max 5 that comes out with mesh drain. So you can have all your decoys, everything in a nice place, get out, sling it on your shoulder, put them where you want. You can toss them out of the kayak if you want to do it that way. And then you just deploy the blind, slip in where you want, and you're ready for a fun morning with ducks.
I'm really excited.
I forgot this was in here.
With my friend Charles Belnaves. He's a great artist, a fantastic tattoo artist. And we've been talking about him doing a tattoo for me for a while.
And do a big squid on Jim here. The Kraken.
Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing how the Kraken was built. I know I'm excited because I'm taking that boat home with me. We had a great time here. We had some tough conditions, but we had fun fishing over here at Long Branch Lakes. It's been a wonderful trip. We finally got some beautiful weather. I'm sure the fishing is going to go off tomorrow. So that wraps up this shoot. If you want to see more about the Kraken, the Kilroy, the Big Rig, and all the other great
So yeah, there's that tattoo. Actually, I think I had a picture of it here. This is actually funny. As a friend of mine took my tattoo, because I actually got the tattoo before the before the logo was decided on for the boat. And a friend of mine took a photo of my tattoo. He's a graphic artist, and kind of wrapped it around a Kraken thing. I can show you here really quick. That was actually my tattoo, the skin and all that, and then he added the graphic. It was kind of cool, pretty fun. And my friend Eric Lorenz in Germany did that for me. So we have a few more questions, comments here. Frank, I told my daughter that when I die, she is to give me a Viking funeral in my Kraken. Perfect. I think that's how I'll do with mine too. Also looking for information on a trailer for it. The trailers I use, and I, you know, because I'm always carrying a lot of boats, I always use a trailer anymore. And I use the traditional. I used the Malone Micro Sport for a long time because I was only carrying a couple boats. But then because I ended up having to carry more boats, and they were getting heavier, and plus with the Blue Sky, I switched over to the Malone Mega Sport trailer, and it carries all those boats really, really well. Mitch, have I done anything with my 360 this year? No, because we haven't been fishing much. I mean, it is all rigged up. It's got the dual torpedoes on it. It's got the my Axiom fish finder on it. Or does it? No, it has an Element fish finder on it. I did add a bait tank to it. So if the surf's not too big, I can get it out and go fish offshore on it. What I'd really like to do is switch over from the dual torpedoes to one of the newer, the 1103 torpedo, because they have a pretty cool setup. Innovative Sportsman has a setup where you can basically tie the motor in with where your rudder is, and so then you can steer it with your handles. The way I have mine currently is with the dual torpedoes is they are locked straight, and then I steer the boat with the rudder, but it doesn't steer great. As I say, it steers kind of like a pig in mud. Volks Watson, how important do I think floor is for offshore? I think it's really important. Those fish out there, they have very, very good eyesight. And I know you're saying the water can be brown or green. It's still sometimes that it's funny is the water can be brown in the top 10 feet. Like when we have a red tide here, it might be the top 15 feet that has red tide. And then down below that, it's clear. We had a situation fishing actually in Texas. This was in the flats, but that flat water always looks kind of dirty. And I was fishing with Jameson, and my buddy's like, you don't need fluoro. So I straight tied, and Jameson was using fluorocarbon, and he was getting bit and I wasn't. And in that one, I actually had to shave my head because I lost a bet with him. Yeah, that was an interesting one. Jimmy Jen, here's his question. Hi, Jim. Love your videos. Hope you're well. Always keeping me entertained. My question is, I caught my neighbor in his garden sticking his carp fish on what? Really? I read that before I just read it. Really, dude? Coggy Flowers, nice turtle. Thank you. This is by Louis the Fish. You can find him on Facebook. He spends most of his time in New Zealand or Hawaii. And Louis the Fish, he's a bone carver. So, yeah, this is carved from bone. Reginald, sorry for just getting on from Tennessee. How are you, man? Thanks for joining us. Jimmy Jam, you can not come to our page again for all I care, dude. That was just inappropriate. So gone. So anyway, I do appreciate you all joining us. We'll be here again on Thursday. Again, I'm not sure because I have lagged and not gotten a guest. I think this Thursday will be Islander trip. Where we loaded up the kayaks and loaded them up and took them down to Cedros Island. So that was, I think, a 7-day trip, mothership trip. So super fun. I think that'll be our next one. So again, that'll be Thursday at 2:00. And thanks for joining us. If you are getting out on the water, please always remember to wear your PFD and keep your paddle right side up. You take care.